Should we bring in the closer?
I think it'd be a good time for that.
All right.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Free Baseball Podcast presented by the Athletes Hub. Episode number 83. We're closing in on 85 episodes of this thing. December time, winter meetings going on. Baseball stuff is happening. The hot stove is starting to potentially not be ice cold anymore soon. But first, how are you, Jake? How are you on this wonderful Wednesday evening? It's 9:11 here. It's whatever.
Oh, let's go! Woo! We timed it perfectly.
It's not that same time because Jake's a Californian.
That's right.
How are you, bud?
I'm doing pretty well, and I don't appreciate you calling me bud. I feel like you're talking to me
Pal.
like a child. But thank
Pal,
you. That's
guy.
actually I prefer that. Bud just makes that's how my brother talks to the children that he takes care of.
Buckaroo.
Yeah, or dude too. Yeah.
Dude.
Don't talk down to me like that. I'm doing pretty well. The rain is coming in. It's I think there's like a huge storm that's about to hit the East Coast, but then it's also hitting the West Coast.
Nice.
So it's about to be really rainy, and it was pretty crazy on the way home. But this is small talk. Weather is small talk, and we're here to talk big things like baseball.
Absolutely. No real transactions to talk about until later, because we're going to start with the draft order. It actually got set. The lottery was completed, and we can just run down the order. Would you actually like to run down the order and talk about some things?
I probably should have put a graphic in so that we could just put it up without having to read them, but I can run through it really fast. I'll test my skills.
Run through the lottery teams.
Yes, and that's just the top 10.
That sounds right.
All right, lottery starting from 1: Guardians, Reds, Rockies, Athletics, White Sox, Royals, Cardinals, Angels, Pirates, Nationals. Next 10 is the Tigers, Red Sox, Giants, Cubs, Mariners, Marlins, Brewers, Rays, Mets, and Blue Jays. And then the final 10 is the Twins, Orioles, Dodgers, Braves, Padres, Yankees, Phillies, Astros, Diamondbacks, and Rangers. I feel like there's not much to talk about here because it's not that time of the year where we are starting to tap into amateur players, because I mean, that's like the thing about baseball is the guys that aren't in professional baseball, we are not thinking about at all. Like, the amount that we think about prospects is already pretty minimal. So the amount we think about amateur players is even less so. But you can clearly see that the draft lottery, I think, is working as intended. Teams like the A's and the Royals, that were the two worst teams in baseball, are picking 4th and 6th. And as someone who still has remnants of being an A's fan, when I saw that, I was just like, what the heck? 4th? Didn't they pick like 6th last year and they were the worst team again? And it's just,
Sounds right.
It's super disappointing. The Guardians, I think, had a 2% chance to get the first pick. They got it. The Reds had like a 1% chance to get the second pick, and they got that. So that's like they almost made the playoffs, the Reds did. So that's pretty wild that they go 1-2. Ohio's about to get a couple big prospects there. Our team, the Rockies, going 3. I'm sure they'll waste that pick.
They're going to draft near you.
Yeah. I mean, the rest of it, though, is about what you'd expect. I think the most notable thing is the Mets, I think, dropped like 10 spots because of the luxury tax, forcing them down to number 19. And then it's also interesting to see some like non-playoff teams like the Padres at 25, the Yankees at 26. Both of those teams, I think, probably also got screwed by the luxury tax as well. And then you got obviously the Championship Series and World Series guys all at the bottom there. But do you have any thoughts on this? I don't imagine there's anything crazy to talk about.
Yeah, no, I think the lottery is working, kind of dissuading teams that are like actively tanking or just really, really bad. Cleveland did have a 2% chance to get the number 1 pick. It's actually their first time ever they've had the first overall pick in the draft, which is something. They'll draft some dude, and who knows?
That would be crazy if they didn't.
I know. Rockies probably going to blow that 3rd pick, like always.
It's going to be fun.
Ooh, yeah. They're going to draft genuinely probably me or you.
Or a pitcher, which is just as bad. Yeah. Like they did last year.
Chase Dollander.
Yeah. RIP. Yeah.
Sorry,
So
Chase.
we won't really revisit this until the All-Star break when the draft comes back around again. But at that point, we'll have there'll be plenty of media ideas and thoughts about everything that's going on with this draft, and we'll get a pretty good idea of who the consensus number one is come next July.
Definitely. And since we just talked about the draft order, we can kind of stay on the draft train and talk about the Rule 5 draft, which just happened. How do you want to run down these picks? Talk about some of these guys.
Yeah, I mean, there's only 10 of them, so I feel like we might as well hit them all. There's probably not much to say. They're all lower level prospects, which makes sense considering that these are all guys that were left off their team's 40-man rosters when they first became available to be stolen in the Rule 5 draft. The draft order is in reverse order of record in the 2023 season, so obviously the A's had the first pick. If you want to think about some of the guys that got picked last year, you had Ryan Noda, who the A's took first overall, and he turned out pretty solid for them. The Giants took Blake Sable in that draft. There were some other interesting guys that never really got super huge, mostly a couple like middle relievers and like long relievers / starters. Like Noah Song was a huge draft pick that the Phillies took away from the Red Sox, and he never made the big leagues. Thad Ward, I think, was the first overall pick by the Nationals, and he was like a long reliever for them. He didn't really do much. There was the guy on the Rays who I am struggling to remember his name, but I can pull it up in like 3 seconds, who I think was the most impactful reliever. And that was, why did they remove him from that? What's his name? Kevin Kelly. Yeah. The Rockies drafted him and then traded him to the Rays, and he was on their team the whole year. So the Rockies are making good picks, I guess, if they wanted to
Just for other teams.
They're pretty interesting. Yeah.
Solid.
So yeah, like usually pitchers are most often drafted in these, but they, I think, have less sticking power, as opposed to position players, which you can sort of just keep on your bench. And there have definitely been clear examples of Rule 5 successes in the past, but they are few and far between. But yeah, I think we can run through each of these and sort of give our ideas of whether or not we think they'll stay. I think we should do a little game of, do we think they will stay?
Sure, and we can start with the number one pick from the Rule 5 draft, which was made by the, for now, Oakland Athletics. And this was one of three players that was lost by the New York Yankees, and it was Mitch Spence. And now he becomes the 23 prospect in Oakland's system. Funnily enough, all three of the guys they lost, right-handed pitchers. Mitch Spence, you got to immediately go with stay because I'm going to use your word from last podcast. The Oakland A's roster is bereft of talent, specifically on the pitching side. And I think Mitch Spence probably has a chance to stay, if not as a starter, potentially as a middle reliever, swingman sort of type. He's not super hard thrower. I know he throws like a cutter around like 91, 92 main pitch. But yeah, I think I've got to immediately go stay just because they don't have anyone else.
Yeah, right now the rotation is JP Sears, Paul Blackburn, Luis Medina, Joe Boyle, and Osvaldo Bido. Roster Resource has Mitch Spence in as the long reliever, so he could be, like you said, a swingman type that pitches out of the bullpen most of the time, but also could be in the rotation because they also have like Kyle Muller there too, who was one of the big returns in the Sean Murphy deal, Matt Olson deal. I don't know. I can't remember. They blend together a lot. Both of them were terrible. But yeah, Mitch Spence is not really somebody that gets you super excited either. He's going to be 26 next year. He had a 4.47 ERA last year at AAA across 163 innings. And it's not like he was striking out a bunch of guys. He was at like 22%. And that's about what he's done the past 2 years. And the 4.47 ERA wasn't even unlucky. It came with a 4.54 xFIP. The stuff grades are all right. It looks like he's got a pretty good slider. It's 60 grade via Fangraphs, but that was back in 2022 since he's off their top 30 on Fangraphs now. So I don't know. It seems like a pretty low ceiling and maybe a higher floor. And I don't know, like Yeah, I think he will probably make the opening day roster, but I feel like he doesn't stick around. I feel like the success might not be there for him to stay around because the A's may not have a lot of talent, but they do have the opportunity to try out a bunch of guys. And if there's one spot on the roster where they have a bunch of guys to try out, it is in the rotation. Because in the minor leagues, they've got Freddie Tarnok, Joey Estes, Adrian Martinez, Hogan Harris, and even like Royber Salinas and Brady Basso, and a few relievers as well. So I think they definitely have enough guys to cycle in. So if Mitch Spence is, the only guy that's not performing, they might send him down. But I mean, they're the A's aren't trying to win. So I wouldn't blame them if they were like, well, this is our best shot at losing. We'll send him out there.
Yeah, I think the long relief type kind of swingman role would fit pretty well just because I feel like the clear plan for this is that he's meant to eat innings, and it's desperately kind of a team chasing guys that can just give them innings and that they don't have to pay really any money to. I feel like is the main reason they got him here. But yeah, I think that he probably, like you said, is going to make the opening day roster. I don't know if he sticks around, but honestly, if the A's kind of just want to hold off on guys in the minor leagues and just have this guy go up there and just honestly, even if he's just getting blown up, I mean, the A's are not trying to win baseball games. So really, I mean, he's just there to go out there and throw baseballs and just kind of get them through it. But yeah, we can talk about the second pick, which is going to be another Yankees right-handed pitcher, and this time it's going to be Matt Sauer, who is the Yankees' number 25 prospect. He's headed to the Kansas City Royals to become their number 22 prospect. Do you think Matt Sauer is going to stay on the roster? Make it. What are your thoughts?
The thing with the Royals is they have a lot of pitching prospects and they never pan out, and I think that's mostly because of their pitching development. So if you're allowing other teams to develop a starter and then bring them over here, which is why I think they're likely to sign starters in free agency and why Cole Reagan's worked out so well, because it's like somebody else developed them and then they came over and pitched in this great pitcher's park. Sauer is a guy who's dealt with a lot of injuries since being drafted way back in 2017 in the second round. And he strikes out a lot of guys. But like I said, he's been unable to stay healthy. He has not surpassed Double-A last year. 24-year-old at Double-A, 3.42 ERA across 68 and a third. But he did strike out 29.5% of batters. So he is a big strikeout guy. We'll see how that works. Obviously, he's been a starter throughout the minor leagues, but I see him more as a guy that sticks in the bullpen since he doesn't quite have the control to stick in the rotation, nor does he have the stamina or mostly durability in terms of not getting injured. So I feel like the best way to keep him healthy and to have him to utilize him in the best way to get the most out of his strikeout ability and lack of control is to use him out of the bullpen. So I see this guy probably sticking in the bullpen, and they don't have too many bullpen arms. And so I think this is a guy that sticks, especially as a lefty. Actually, he's a righty, especially as a righty.
Yeah, he had a crazy game last year. He had a start where he struck out 17 Double-A in Somerset, which is pretty wild. But yeah, you said, I sort of agree with that. He had like almost a 30% strikeout rate, 10% walk rate though. So I mean, guy, obviously, he's got some pretty wicked stuff. But yeah, he walks pretty much the entire world. 3.42 ERA. He had a 3.71 xFIP last year. He just doesn't throw innings because, like you said, dealt with a lot of injuries. He is super injury prone. Royals extremely, extremely bad at developing literally any pitching. So just a guy that is able to throw baseballs and do anything probably fits with them. I think he probably sticks as well. We can move on to our boys, the Colorado Rockies. They selected another right-handed pitcher, this time not from the Yankees, another AL East team though, Tampa Bay Rays. He becomes their number 22 prospect.
Yeah, Anthony Molina, somewhat interesting, mostly because he rose all the way to AAA last year as a 21-year-old. But other than that, I don't know what the Rockies are expecting to do with him. He had a 4.37 ERA, which came with a 4.86 xFIP last year at AAA across 55 and 2/3 innings. And his success was actually worse in Double-A. prior to that. So, and he's not like a big strikeout guy either. He was less than 20%. So definitely like a pitch to contact guy. And so like this is what I'm imagining. The Rockies are looking for like a ground ball guy that's like a pitch to contact. They sort of like that. He's really young. He's got some potential. They take a shot and like maybe it works out. He's not a ground ball pitcher. He had a 40% ground ball rate at AAA and a 42% ground ball rate at AA. That's not high. You like Eric Fetty in Chicago was like, oh, I did forget to put Fetty on the rundown. That's a good catch there. He was like 70% for the whole year in KBO. So like that's a big difference. 40% is not a huge ground ball guy. So this guy's going to be a fly ball guy in Colorado. I like don't see that working out too well. And he's really young. So you're just like, you got a 22-year-old that's got to stick on a major league roster pitching in Coors. It's not a combination that I think is going to work out well. I don't know. I don't think he sticks.
I saw a tweet that said one of the Rockies scouts compared him to German Marquez. So, I mean, I don't know.
What does that even mean?
He basically said that the numbers are sort of similar. And when you look at it now, he's actually higher at he's 2 levels higher at the same age when they acquired German Marquez. So I don't know. I really don't know what that means. I don't really trust the guy that's getting mostly fly balls in Coors that typically does not play, unless you're going to hope Brenton Doyle goes and tracks every single one of them down. But I really doubt that.
They do have great outfield defense, but yeah, I don't think that's going to save them.
Depends on if he starts. I mean, really, like realistically, the guy that they released was Connor Seabold. So, I mean, if he's better than Connor Seabold, sure. Is he going to be? I don't know. So, I don't know. This one's going to be thumbs right in the middle for me. Mainly because you just can't trust the Rockies to ever do anything normal.
Yeah. And if the Rays weren't protecting him as like a 22-year-old, like there's a reason.
Right. Skipping ahead, we're going to talk about the Chicago White Sox next pick. Talk about right-handed pitchers so far. Only right to talk about left-handed pitcher because he's the next one. It's Shane Drohan, number 19 prospect for the Boston Red Sox. Stays right at that number for the White Sox.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Wow. Those are some interesting numbers. I'm clearly didn't do my research beforehand, but really good at AA last year. 34 innings as a 24-year-old, 1.32 ERA. He struck out 28% of batters. Then he went to AAA and like forgot how to pitch. 6.47 ERA, and he walked 15% of batters. His walk rate more than doubled. That's very interesting because that sounds like a mental thing and not like he forgot how to pitch. So I could definitely see that turning around. He'll be 25 next year. He does have a pretty good changeup and 3 other pitches to go with that. I don't think he's going to stick in the rotation for a Red Sox team that has its eyes set on adding to the rotation while already having Sale, Pivetta, Bayo, Crawford, and Houck. So there's a shot he sticks in the bullpen. Did I say Red Sox? He's going to the White Sox.
Mm-hmm.
He was on the Red Sox. The White Sox, though, just added a bunch of starters. Like I said, Fetty, and then we'll talk about him again later. They could trade Cease, though, which could open up more spots, but then they still have Kopech and Soroka and Toussaint. I don't know. I could see him sticking. I could definitely see him sticking. It sounds like a guy that is more suited for a bullpen role, considering his struggles with command. Like he seems too inconsistent to be a starter. But yeah, I could see him sticking.
Yeah, I mean, he's a 60-grade changeup, solid. They have a pretty clear need for a lefty in the bullpen after they traded Aaron Bummer to the Atlanta Braves. So I think he could probably stick here. I just don't think he's going to stick as a starter. Most likely going to be resigned to a bullpen role. We can talk about our next one, which is going to be the Nationals taking our first hitter of this Rule 5 draft, and it is Nasim Nunez, shortstop from the Miami Marlins. He was a number 16 prospect, and he's going to slot in at number 23 for the Nationals.
He's really interesting because he sucks at hitting, but he's fast AF and is a really good fielder. So, like, this is a guy that could come up right away and be like a legit great fielder at shortstop. Obviously, they already have CJ Abrams locked in there, but third base is like Carter Kieboom. So, I mean, if they want to move Abrams to third or move him to second and have Luis Garcia switch to third and just let Nunez like just go crazy at shortstop, that's pretty solid. But like I said, not a great hitter. 79 WRC plus last year. He's got no power, hit just 5 home runs across 125 games, but he stole 52 bases. So he is fast AF, really great fielder. But not much else does he bring to the table. So this is a guy that I think could stick because teams always need like these glove first guys that could be really good with the new stolen base rules and that kind of stuff. So I think he sticks, though I don't know if he's gonna like crack the everyday lineup because he really just cannot hit.
Yeah, he's going to end up being more of a utility guy. I saw someone comp him to Nicky Lopez with more speed. Yeah,
Sure.
that probably checks out.
Yeah.
Throw him at any of those positions, second, third, or short, and just have him go out there, field all right, and then hit near the bottom of the lineup. The Nationals are not really going to be good again. So I don't know. I feel like he's going to make the roster and probably stick, not in an everyday role. Next team is going to be the St. Louis Cardinals, taking another Red Sox prospect. This time it's Ryan Fernandez. Did not crack the top 30 for the Red Sox, but he's going to be the number 26 prospect for the Cardinals.
Yeah, and so with a lot of these prospect rankings, it's like they're being re-ranked based off last year because they haven't done the re-rankings for 2024. So a lot of these guys move up a little based off how they performed last year. Fernandez, though, sort of did the same thing that Drohan did, where he was really good at AA, 1.77 ERA, he struck out 32% of batters. This was all as a reliever. And then he made it to AAA as a 25-year-old and forgot how to pitch, 6.16 ERA, but the walks went down, but so did the strikeouts. So maybe that's there's got to be some outside circumstances that force that to happen. The big thing I think is a 20% increase in home run to fly ball rate. So definitely a lot of bad luck there. His BABIP rose like 70 points too. There's like a 2 ERA. There's like a 2-point difference between his ERA and his xFIP at AAA. So he's clearly got big strikeout stuff. He's got a 70 grade slider. So I think he does have legit stuff. And now that he's on the Cardinals, they are a team that added starters that we've already spoken about in the previous podcast, but their bullpen is really not great outside of Helsley, Gallegos, and Romero. Andre Piante is pretty good at getting ground balls, and then the rest of them are just guys that they're sort of trying to figure things out with. So I think with Fernandez showing the potential to strike guys out and having a devastating slider, I feel like he could stick. Did
you see the whiff percentage on his slider from the last year?
I did not.
What do you think it would be?
Whiff percentage, I have like no baseline here. That's per swing. So this like swinging strike rate is per pitch, and whiff percentage per swing 30%.
70%.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And that's actually up. God. That's up from 2022 when it was 59%. So his slider's disgusting. 70 grade slider. Throws his other primary pitch that he throws is a cutter. So he throws kind of a weird cutter slider combo. That also is around 96 to 97. Yeah, he's got nasty stuff. Just really struggled in AAA. He's 25 and he's been a reliever. I feel like as long as he can just go out there and strike some guys out on occasion, he'll stick. The Cardinals just don't have a very strong bullpen, and it remains to be seen how competitive they're going to be, even though they did rebuild their rotation with a bunch of AARP card holders. We talk about our next team, which is the New York Mets, and they selected Texas Rangers, well, former Texas Rangers now, Justin Slayton, right-handed pitcher. And he was traded to Boston for left-handed pitcher Ryan Ammons. He'll be the number 25 prospect for Boston.
Yeah. Slayton, also a reliever, and had a ton of success last year for the Rangers. He pitched most of his season at AA with a 3.16 ERA, and he struck out a whopping 37.5% of batters and didn't walk too many guys either. He had a nearly 30% strikeout minus walk percentage, which is incredibly elite. Comes with another 70 grade slider and a 65 grade fastball. So he's throwing fast. He's got that wipeout slider. That's a guy that I think could definitely stick. Now that we finally get to talk about the Red Sox, I think the Red Sox are in a clear need of help in any way, especially in the bullpen. They have a lot of guys there, but none that I'm like super enamored with. Winkowski's pretty solid. Whitlock could end up in the rotation. Schreiber's been doing his thing, but I still think there's room for him at the back end of that bullpen to back end's wrong, front end of the bullpen for him to stick there because he's had so much success in the minors and he'll be 26 next year. So it's not like it's not going to be a huge shock to him. He's not going to be super young.
Yeah, I think he does fit pretty well in the bullpen mix there. He was a starter last year. Well, was he a starter last year? I'm talking out of my ass. He
started one game.
Okay, yes, I know. He had a solid season last year. 86 strikeouts to 20 walks. Solid numbers. 2.87 ERA. I think he had like a higher to mid threes FIP. 3.95. Solid. 13.3 Ks per nine. Strikes out a lot of guys. I know he can throw us like a pretty solid fastball and a power curveball. Other than that, it's really no. I think the Mets really do need some bullpen help. They're currently figuring, again, they're running out the Mets strategy of Edwin Diaz is our closer, and then we just have a bunch of dudes. We just have a bunch of guys that exist and throw baseballs.
Red Sox, though.
Well, yeah, that's right, because they had him for 3.5 seconds. They got Ryan Ammons, that's right. Red Sox, sort of the same thing, too, though. Their bullpen has not really been anything special for quite some time now. They sort of need guys that just can go get outs. They also didn't really have very many guys that are just real power guys there either. So, I mean, they kind of give them a different look there. It's a move. I think he sort of fits, and I think he'll stick because I don't know how competitive the Red Sox are going to be. They sort of feel like the worst team in that division.
Yeah, that's a fair assessment.
We can talk about our number one draft pick holders now, and that's the Cleveland Guardians. They selected our second hitter, also an infielder, and this is third baseman Davison De Los Santos, who is the number 5 prospect for the Diamondbacks. He becomes the number 12 prospect for Cleveland.
Yeah, this is the only guy that I knew. Actually, I knew who Nasim Nunez was, but I also knew Davison De Los Santos. I didn't know anybody else, but this one surprised me the most because 2022, he was like a huge breakout guy. Had a lot of hype. Like he seemed to be like the next big thing because he was 19. He climbed from A ball to AA. He combined for like 22 home runs and 5 steals across the 3 levels that he played at. And then this year, he did not build off that. He just swings at everything. He still hit 20 home runs at AA as a 20-year-old, but he batted 254, and he just struck out too much 26% of the time, only walked 5% of the time. That's not going to work out. So I think the biggest thing here is just him being able to have better plate discipline. I know he really showed out at the Arizona Fall League Home Run Derby in 2022 as well. So he's a guy with huge power. His raw power is 70 on Fangraphs, but his game power is currently 25. Their future is 60. So I think he's got a lot of power to tap into, but it's going to take him showing plate discipline. And the best place to go for that, in my opinion, is Cleveland, because they are a team that just loves guys that do not strike out, that walk a bunch. They're the kings of the 1-to-1 walk to strikeout ratio, which is my favorite thing. And so if Davison De Los Santos is going to go there and learn from the likes of Steven Kwan and Jose Ramirez and a bunch of other contact-oriented guys there, maybe that could help him, especially because he's going to be on the big league roster. I don't think this is a guy that sticks because I think he's going to strike out too much. But if the Guardians are really committed to allowing him to reach his fullest potential and sort of just test everything out there, and just like keep him on the bench and have him, go through the motions as a 21-year-old jumping from AA after struggling, they could keep him in their system, and maybe that's what they end up doing. But a lot of times with guys like this, you try to have that development in the major leagues and it doesn't work out, and it sort of train wrecks their entire career.
Yeah, I think a plan here could genuinely be tried to hide him for 90 days. And if he just doesn't pan out, you just sit him down. But yeah, I mean, it was last season.
You have to keep him on the roster the whole year.
Yeah, well, I mean, if he can't hit, he can't hit is the thing. There's realistically with him there's power if you want it. he is just going to have to fix the plate discipline thing. He walked 2.5% of the time last year. Two
2.5. I see
Yeah.
5.2.
Well, I'm looking at his numbers from the second half, specifically where he actually was good, and that was when he was being aggressive. He actually had a solid second half last season with 238 plate appearances. He hit 14 home runs. Like you said, game power, probably not super far along, but he hit 322, 340 on base. He walked 2.5% of the time, slugged 596. He's just too aggressive. He's just way too aggressive.
Yeah.
Swings at literally everything. Sort of got the hobby bias mentality, I guess, whatever. But, I mean, if they can fit him defensively on the roster, why not? Because the Guardians are sort of in a weird spot. They can, I think, of any team, they can sort of afford to have guys like this. And like you said, it's probably the best. Like it's probably the best organization to go in terms of building up plate discipline. The defensive fit is sort of weird because he's not a great fielder at third. Plus, they obviously already have Jose Ramirez.
He'll likely platoon with another prospect, Kyle Manzardo, at first base, but we'll see how that works out.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I don't think he is going to stick. If the plate discipline can't turn around, he's probably gone. Talk about the San Diego Padres, and we'll talk about someone being gone from them later. But they added right-handed pitching prospect Stephen Kolek from the Mariners. He's the number 24 prospect for the Padres.
He spent most of his season at AAA as a reliever, 4.23 ERA. He walked way too many guys, 11%, while striking out just 25%. I can just say right now, I don't think this guy's going to stick.
Yeah, just looking at him, full-time. He's a full-time reliever. He had 49 games, high threes, ERA, not great. He's really not going to stick. Hold on. Extremely cool. He had almost a 60% ground ball rate last year in AAA.
That's interesting.
Very neat. I don't know. Sure. No, he's not staying on that roster. Definitely not. And we can talk about our last one, which is the Rangers selecting the last of the three pitchers from the Yankees. This is Carson Coleman.
I think he underwent Tommy John surgery in April, so they're sort of just holding on to him because he likely won't pitch until the very end of the year. This feels similar to Noah Song, where it's just a guy that never really makes it, and then it gets to the end of the year when it's just like, okay, he's not injured anymore. You better put him on your roster if you want to keep him. And then they're just like, well, we're trying to make the playoffs. We're not going to do that. He was really good in 2022 prior to getting injured, 2.86 ERA. He struck out 38% of batters. He's got a 70 grade fastball. So I think he is legit, but he is recovering from Tommy John and won't be ready until the end of the year. And I just don't see him making the roster when they're, pushing to make the playoffs.
Probably not. 2.13 ERA. He had 95 strikeouts and 63 and a third in 2022. Pretty solid. But I think the team he got drafted to is more of an indictment of like, okay, this is sort of a weird fit, like you said, within the whole Noah Song thing. If he was on a team that's bad, that can sort of afford to hold the roster spot and just be like, okay, whatever. We'll get this guy at the end of the year. We'll be able to give him a chance. Sure. But the Rangers, they kind of need to have those roster spots. I don't know. Definitely not going to fit, though. Don't think so. That is our entire Rule 5 draft we're going to talk about, except for the minor league phase, which we can talk about round 2. And you can talk about the Giants selecting Dario Lopez.
Yeah, so I only included him because he was the only ranked prospect that was taken in the draft. So these are guys that they can keep at the minor league level. I really don't know much about the minor league portion of the Rule 5 draft, but the Giants did take shortstop Dario Lopez, who was the 14th prospect for the Pirates. He's got pretty decent power. He was 20 at high A last year and hit 19 home runs. I just felt like we should mention his name, but a guy that's that young, only at high A, probably a couple of years away, and we'll see if this is one where it's sort of just sometimes you mention a name and it helps you remember it. So when he comes back up later, we're just like, oh my God, that's the guy that the Giants stole in the minor league phase of the Rule 5 draft, and now look at him.
A cool few things about him. He didn't play last season pretty much at all. because he had a dislocated knee.
Oh, that was 2022. You're right.
Yeah, he didn't play last season because he had a dislocated knee. He also just played his previous season with the Greensboro Grasshoppers, which just so happens to be the high A affiliate of the Pirates, which is extremely
That's
close.
your team.
Yeah, it's extremely close to me. The Greensboro is only about 50 minutes to an hour away, so it's pretty dope. I don't know. Hopefully, he'll be real good. But that's it for our Rule 5 draft talk. And we can get back into some of the hot stove stuff from the winter meetings. We can start with the Cincinnati Reds signing an actual baseball player this time. They signed Nick Martinez, loading up on them reliever types. Nick Martinez kind of remains to be seen what they want to do with him, but they signed him to a 2-year deal worth $26 million as an opt-out in 2025.
Yeah, I expect them to use him as a starter.
Yeah, probably.
Because, this is like that Michael Wacha deal that we were both suspecting, where they just get like a veteran guy that can go out there and eat innings. And while Nick Martinez isn't really recognized as an innings eater because he hasn't surpassed 110 innings since coming back to the major leagues, but he's pretty decent. He's got a pretty deep repertoire. I think he should be fine in Cincinnati because he's not a super heavy fly ball guy. But yeah, it's not going to be a guy that's going to be vying for the Cy Young, despite how good he was when he was pitching in Japan. It's just a guy that's going to be there every day that you can count on. I do expect him to surpass that 110 innings pitch because this is going to be a guy that they're going to be relying upon. But they have a ton of young starters, and I think Martinez is there sort of just to be a stabilizing force.
Yeah, he's a big ground ball guy, but that infield defense is brutal. Your boss, Nick Pollock, had this tweet, which is very interesting. He said, well, he had a 55% ground ball rate. That's really good, right? Cincinnati were 29th of 30 teams in infield defense outs above average, negative 25. They're extremely bad defensively in the infield. Not good. But Nick Martinez, I mean, you have to I really respect what he did because he had the opt out with the Padres, left $16 million on the table, goes and gets $26 million, which funnily enough, talk about the Michael Wacha deal. That's $1 million more than both of us predicted for Michael Wacha.
We had it. We were so close.
So good. There's still time. Jake.
There is.
Holding out hope for Michael Wacha to the Reds. Yeah, I mean, it's fine. Well, it remains to be seen how successful he'll be. Infield defense, not good. He doesn't get he does get ground balls, so keep the ball in the yard in Great American Small Park is always a good thing. We'll see. And then our next move we can talk about will stay in the same division, the NL Central. We're going to talk about something different, and it's the Brewers extending top prospect Jackson Chourio. 8 years, $82 million. He has $25 million options for 2032 and 2033 with $2 million buyouts with those two. So his deal could max out around $142.5 million. This is the largest contract for a player prior to the MLB debut, which is completely shattering the deal previously for Luis Robert Jr., which was 6 years, $50 million.
Yeah, and I feel like that's mostly just because he allowed them to take him for 8 years, because that's pretty wild. That's likely going to be the 5 years of control that they have over him, the 2 minimum years and 3 years of arbitration, and then they're guaranteed 3 years of his free agency, and then possibly 2 more at $25 million. And it's not like this is just some random prospect. This is not like Scott Kingery deal or Evan White deal or John Singleton, where all those didn't work out. This is the number 2 prospect in baseball. Last year as a 19-year-old, reaching all the way up to AAA. At AA, he hit 22 home runs, stole 43 bases, batted .280. Pretty incredible year. He's a 5-tool guy. This does seem to be the next big guy, and the fact that the Brewers were able to lock him in is super smart on their part, really great on their part. But I sort of feel bad for someone like Chourio, because this does feel like another one of those deals where guy gets screwed like that. But we've talked about this kind of stuff over and over with these contracts, that anything can happen. We saw with Acuna, he got a deal after debuting that was definitely below market, and he tore his ACL. So there was that idea that, his career could be over. It could be going downhill. Obviously it turned around last year, but these types of deals usually they can really be 50-50, but with a guy with a high pedigree as Churio, I mean, Robert Jr., I think is the clearest parallel to him because he was that highly ranked prior to signing that extension and had such a good season beforehand. The thing is for Churio, if he's able to hit free agency after 2033, which is 10 years from now, he will be 29. So it's like about when you would usually hit free agency anyway, if you were to get called up at a normal time. Actually, I think he'll be 30 because he'll be 20 next year. But still, this does guarantee that we will see him likely to open the year, which is very exciting. And I'm super pumped to see how high he gets drafted in fantasy because the hype around guys like this usually goes through the roof, and he's a clear 5-tool guy. So this is like really exciting, I think, for baseball fans, really exciting for like Brewers fans, the Brewers front office. But there is a little bit of me that's like, dang, this guy probably got screwed, and it's going to be crazy when he's like one of the best players in baseball making 10 million, 15 million or whatever as like a 26-year-old.
Yeah, I agree with that part. It is kind of weird that he kind of agreed basically to a deal that could amount to being 10 years. It is 8 years plus the 2 options. So there is a chance that he's with the Brewers until he's 30 years old. I think the contract is, it's so tough because it's like the guy really could end up being like a $300+ million guy. But he's also taking this money without ever playing a game in Major League Baseball. So it's tough to be like, oh yeah, he's kind of banking on the now, which is tough to blame him for either. But yeah, I feel like this guy, if he's as good as advertised, is probably leaving a lot of money on the table. But it's good for the Brewers, obviously, small market team being able to hold down their top prospect and potential superstar for a deal that's really not that crazy. Yeah, solid, I guess, for them. Don't really like this for Jackson Churio. Oh well, it is what it is.
I'm pumped to see him play because like with a guy like this, like you could see him not playing until like June or July or whatever, or like if the Brewers aren't really in it, there's like no reason for them to even play him next year. And that would be like with him having success at AAA too. So this guarantees him playing on opening day. And I'm really excited about that. That's one of the best things about baseball is having the new big prospects come up, and there's always a pipeline. But yeah, this should be really exciting first year for Churio.
Yeah, he is MLB Pipeline's number 2 overall prospect.
Yep.
So yeah, it is going to be extremely exciting to see that. Always like top prospects actually starting the year with the big league club. We can talk about our next move, which is another reliever deal. Love reliever deals, and it's the Dodgers signing Joe Kelly again, 1 year deal, $8 million.
Yeah, pretty big deal for a guy that is going to be 36 next year and hasn't had an ERA below 4 since 2021, but he's got ridiculous stuff, and the strikeout rates are bonkers. 35% last year, nearly 36, and he's been really unlucky in terms of ERA. Came with a 2.6 xFIP, and the year before he had a 6 ERA and a 3 xFIP. So this is a guy that I think is a very good pitcher, and he sort of just needs a good year, but he throws 100 miles per hour. He's got like a wicked slider and curveball. And so I think it's a good fit no matter where he goes. Every team can always use more relievers. I wish that the Dodgers wouldn't be that team, but he fits really well with them, not only because they don't have the strongest bullpen as they usually do, but also because he sort of made a name for himself there, mostly with the that's where he did the pouty face at Carlos Correa, right?
Yes.
Oh my God.
What?
Nothing happened. But I just saw that Eduardo Rodriguez and the D-backs have had advanced discussions about a multi-year contract. Isn't that who you chose?
No, I chose.
Did you predict
Royals.
D-backs?
No.
Oh.
Had Royals.
I chose. You had Reds. I had Royals.
Yeah, no.
I have
That's
it.
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. I think Troy in our fantasy
I
league
had
had.
I had Seth Lugo to the Diamondbacks.
Yeah, and I had Marcus Stroman. One sec. He had Erod to. Mm, Erod. He had Erod to the Yankees. I don't know why I just got so pumped about that. That was interesting.
Couple notes on Joe Kelly. This definitely means that the Dodgers are out on Otani because he wears number 17, and he's not going to give it up.
Yes.
So no more Otani. The Dodgers also, Jason Hayward is officially signed. Joe Kelly's signing is official too. So this actually puts the 40-man for the Dodgers as full. So they're going to have to get rid of somebody either through a trade or
No, they're not getting
DFA.
anybody else.
Yeah, they're not. Well, they have to because it's already full without Joe Kelly. So they have to get rid of
Oh,
somebody
wow.
to make room. So I don't know. Maybe the Dodgers are going to trade everyone. That'd be really cool. But
Yeah.
I think we're done talking about Joe Kelly. We can talk about another trade though, and this is the Mariners making a trade with the Braves. They traded Jared Kelenic, Marco Gonzalez, and Evan White to the Braves in exchange for Jackson Kowar and Cole Phillips. The Braves immediately turned around and traded Marco Gonzalez and everyone's favorite baseball player, cash considerations, to the Pittsburgh Pirates in exchange for more cash considerations or a player to be named later.
Yeah, I think this is the biggest transaction that we've had thus far, just because it's the most surprising one, right? That's usually sort of how I weigh them, where it's just like, oh my god, when you see it. That's sort of how I felt yesterday when the Verdugo trade came through, because I was at work and nobody likes baseball. And then actually, no, I was at like a work function, and then the trade came through, and I was just like, oh, there's nobody here that will understand. And they're just like, Jake, your boss likes baseball. I'm like, he does not know who Alex Verdugo is. Anyway, this trade is crazy because the Braves just cannot keep getting away with this. We've been saying this for years with all the extensions and the trades that they've had with the A's and everything. Now they get Jared Kelenic, who was a former number one prospect in baseball. And they get him, and they're just going to turn him into a beast. And it's clearly like a salary dump for the Mariners, where they paired a couple guys that have higher salaries in Gonzalez and White with Kelenic, who's got a lot of potential. And then in return, they got Kowar, who's a former first round pick, and I think has a lot of potential as a reliever, and going to Seattle is pretty cool. So I think he should have a lot of success there. And Cole Phillips becomes their number 15 prospect. He's a hard throwing reliever that has been injured a lot. Actually, I think he's a starter. Either way, the Mariners are clearly just like broke, and either they're clearing a lot of space for something big to happen, or they're just being really goofy, because trading Kelenic at this point does not make much sense. It's at the low point, but it allowed them to clear some more payroll to make room for more moves. But Kelenic going to Atlanta is pretty crazy, because if he really does reach his full potential, and then they have him in their lineup as well, that's absolutely bonkers. But clearly the Mets won the Edwin Diaz trade.
Oh God, I completely forgot about that. Yeah, I think this is just a huge salary dump for the Mariners, and it makes no sense unless they're going to add someone else pretty big. I know I had them adding Blake Snell, so hopefully that'd be really cool. I'd look like a galaxy brain guy. Obviously Eddie Rosario comes off the books for Atlanta, and they can replace him with someone who's younger, hit better last year, and probably a better defender, which is not saying all that much because Kelenic sort of sucked last year. But yeah, I mean, this just feels like somebody that's going to get one tweak to their swing, and they're going to fix him, and then he's going to go off, and they're going to extend him for 12 years.
12 years. Yep.
$50, which is going to be really stupid. I don't know.
Half of it goes to the Braves Foundation.
Yeah, I hate this move for the Mariners unless they have something big planned. If this is just a salary dump because they're broke, I'm so sorry, Mariners fans, because there's no reason.
What kind of move do you think could like change this in your eyes? Because like I don't see, like, Kelnic's going to be 24 next year. He's clearly got like a lot of time to figure things out. We saw in the first half of last year that he was actually pretty decent. I think it was at least through April that he was hitting pretty well. Through April, He batted 308. He hit 7 home runs. Remember that home run he had in Chicago? That was like the longest home run ever hit there. Yeah. And I think through May, he actually continued to hit pretty well. Through May, he was batting 277. He had 10 home runs, 7 stolen bases. So like he's still got everything there. I still think it's like a mental thing that keeps him from like holding back the strikeout rate. But if I think the Braves can help him figure it out just by giving him a good environment to sort of like take the pressure off him and really allow him to break out. But that would really be the richest getting even richer. But like, what can I trade? Can you even imagine, or what kind of transaction can you imagine the Mariners doing that? Like, oh, okay, yeah, this is worth it. Get Jared Kelenic out of here because I would rather have this guy.
If they were actually involved in trying to trade for Juan Soto, but that's obviously out of the window, and we'll talk about that later. But that sort of feels like,
but like, you're going to trade for Juan Soto, you trade Jared Kelenic,
right? It makes no sense. I know there's some rumors floating, like I think they were supposed to be in one of the final teams for like Yamamoto, but it feels like their lineup is capital A ass. They are so
and the
bad.
rotation's great.
Mm-hmm. Have you looked at what their lineup is currently figuring?
Yes, I have many times, like, and it's like,
oh my god,
awful.
It's extremely bad. Josh
Julio
Rojas
Rodriguez, JP Crawford, and some other guys.
Yeah, JP Crawford, J Rod, Cal Raleigh, Ty France,
and that's it.
Yeah, I don't know.
But it's just like the only thing that I could imagine that would actually like make up for it. Yeah, like the only thing that I can imagine that would make up for it is they sign a big starter. They sign another big starter after they already did that with Robbie Ray a couple years ago. And then they just have way too much pitching talent that they have to like trade Bryce Miller, Brian Wu, and they trade like 3 big starters, and then they get like just like a super good rising star who I can't even think of anybody like
Dalton Varsho. I'm not joking. Dalton Varsho would fit.
Like somebody on
I could see them potentially moving for Jung-Hoo Lee through free agency as well. That sort of fits their
maybe they go get like freaking Lars Nootbaar or Jordan Walker or something. They trade a couple starters to the Cardinals. I'm just thinking them because they need starters, or maybe they go to can't even think of teams like, I don't. Okay, this is like super hypothetical. But let's say they did that and then they traded for like Ellie De La Cruz.
Royals for Vinny P.
They sign Blake Snell and then they trade 2 or 3 starters and they get just like one of the biggest like rising stars in the game. Would that like change things for you? Would that like make up for everything that like that's I feel like is the only way they could do it? They do something crazy like that.
I guess if that were to happen, but again, that is super hypothetical and probably not going to.
Yeah.
This just feels like, it honestly just feels like the Mariners being a bunch of cheap asses. And if that's the case, I mean, like, that's embarrassing. They're I don't know. That sucks. I hate that.
Like, what if they got when is Luis Robert a free agent? He's not a free agent until he's got 26 and 27 club options. So he's still got 4 years. Let's say like the White Sox are I think an ideal team because they're not going to be competing anytime soon. They're like just starting a rebuild. They're willing to like take a bunch of talent and see if they can figure it out. Like I could see them doing like signing a big starter, Snell or Yamamoto, and then trading 2 or 3 starters for Luis Robert Jr. And then I think that might make up for trading away Kelenic. And what was the other trade they did?
The Braves or the Mariners?
No, the Mariners.
Suarez, Eugenio Suarez.
Yeah. So if they do that, like obviously that doesn't fix the lineup altogether. Just adding Luis Robert, and like obviously you're gonna have to do either a couple more trades or sign some like low level free agents. But if they add like Blake Snell and Luis Robert and the rotation is like Luis Castillo, Logan Gilbert, George Kirby, Blake Snell, and then like some other like fifth prospect starter, and then their lineup has now Julio Rodriguez and Luis Robert. That I could see making up for it, but that's like 100th percentile best case scenario. I think what actually happens is they sign Blake's I don't even know what's going to happen at this point.
What could potentially happen is if they're making this move, they could potentially go after someone like Blake Snell, and I don't think that they would trade the young guys like Wu and Miller. I think that they would potentially move. I think they would move Logan Gilbert.
Yeah,
I think Logan Gilbert feels like
he's relatively young. I was including him.
Yeah, well, he's relatively young, but he's not like he's been around a little bit longer. I think he fits more on the lines of being moved. And then I could see them potentially, if the Rays are going to also cut some cost, trying to get someone like a Randy or Rosarena. Yeah, they could get Randy. I like the Robert fit specifically because the White Sox are awful.
Randy makes more sense, but I think like those are the two guys that they'd be going for. Randy or Luis Robert, I think, are the only guys that you can really shoot for. That would and this is with the caveat that it's that's what I'm saying. Like, that's the caveat, is that those are the only ones that I think are doing a lot to like make up for trading Kelenic just to free up payroll space and trading Eugenio Suarez for the same thing. I mean, adding to the rotation when you already have such a good rotation is super weird. It's just like a really roundabout way to go about like, we want to improve our lineup, so we're gonna make it worse, and then so we can improve it. And it's just like at that point, it's like you have to compare the lineup as it began, as the offseason began, versus where it is at the end of the offseason. And it's just like, would they be better with Kelenic and Suarez versus just like one big star and a medium third baseman or whatever? It's going to be I think it's going to be a really interesting offseason for the Mariners.
My favorite hypothetical my brain just created was if they moved Gilbert and someone else for Jason Dominguez.
Yeah, except he won't play until like late summer.
I mean, the Mariners are gonna suck anyway because their lineup stinks. They have Josh Rojas.
That's it. I understand that's hypothetical.
Best hitter. I don't know.
That is true. I understand that's hypothetical. I just don't think the Yankees want to trade Dominguez for anything.
I'd be pissy if I was a Mariners fan over this.
Yeah.
But moving on. Enough waffling over the Braves fleecing the Mariners again.
I don't think there was any waffling. I think we chose a side.
Yeah, definitely so. The Brewers did re-sign Wade Miley, 1 year, $7 million, with a $12 million mutual option for 2025, but it's almost assuredly not going to be picked up with a $1.5 million buyout. Wade Miley is a thrower of baseballs, and he is going back to the Brewers.
Talk about most unsurprising move of the offseason. Like, he just like seems like a Brewers guy. And I know he pitched for the Brewers last year and hasn't pitched for them since 2018 before then. But the fact that they've now signed him 3 times in free agency, I think really shows clearly that this is like their guy. And they just like Wade Miley. He's not that good. But somehow really always finds a way. Yeah, he somehow always finds a way to pitch to like a low 3s ERA or a mid 3s ERA, except for every once in a while when he turns into a pumpkin and pitches to a 5.5 ERA. But he
has a no trade clause too.
That's sick.
Apparently he has a limited no trade clause.
He just loves Wisconsin.
That's so funny. Yeah, I want to know who's on that. I've got to know who's on that list.
Yeah, probably Cincinnati because he sucked there so much.
Have you looked at his ERA by team? It's exactly what you think it is.
Well, I see it. Oh, you mean like by team combined?
Yeah, by team combined.
Yeah, it's like low 3s with the Brewers, and then everybody else he sucks.
Sub 3 with the Brewers. He's a 2.9 with the Brewers. He has a 2.9 with the Brewers, and then his lowest is actually with his 1 year with the Cubs, and it's a 3.16. Yep. The rest of them are high 3s. He has, interestingly, you said he sucked with Cincy. He had 3.5 ERA with Cincy.
Well, he had a 3.37 ERA 1 year, and then the other year was 2020.
Yeah, he got shelled when he was with the Orioles. and he sucked with Boston. So yeah, he's a Brewers guy, forever a Brewer. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean
That
they
no
can
trade
use it.
clause is so funny.
They have no starters is the thing. Like with
They
Woodruff
don't.
gone, it's like they're going to be relying on Aaron Ashby coming back from uh being injured all year, and then they got like Corbin Burns and Freddie Peralta, and obviously the perennial Adrian Hauser. But yeah, it's clear they just wanted a guy that's there that they like, and that's Wade Miley.
Yeah, definitely a Brewers move right here, and we can talk about the Rangers adding to their bullpen, and they have added Kirby Yates on a deal worth $4.5 million over 1 year. Rangers sort of trying to rebuild their bullpen by any means necessary. Kirby Yates, one of the first ones together.
Yeah, that's like the one area of need for them. So that's, I think, definitely going to be a focus. I think they want to bring back Jordan Montgomery or sign another like mid-range starter if they don't get him, just because of all the injuries that they faced last year and sort of returning the same injury-plagued rotation. But the bullpen is the clear point of focus here, and Yates is going to be a guy that helps out there despite being 37 this upcoming year. I think he's still pretty solid. Last year struck out 31.5% of guys, 3.28 ERA. This is after a 3-year stretch in which he toshed us 11 innings. So it was definitely dealing with a lot of injuries, but 2019, 2018, he was one of the best relievers in baseball. And despite his age, his fastball splitter combo is still pretty decent. There's a shot he ends up being the closer, I feel like, which is crazy. Not to open the season, but at some point, like he could be the closer. But I think Leclerc or Spores are going to hold on to that, or they'll sign somebody else. I don't think they're done adding to their bullpen.
I don't either. I think I had them projected to get like Jordan Hicks. And my predictions, I need to look at that again. That sounds right. Yeah, I mean, Kirby Yates, very quietly, I mean, like, it feels like he was the closer for the Padres for a while and really a star, and then he just sort of, his star kind of fell a little bit, but he's been very solid, really good last year. But that is the one area of need that they really, really had to add for them. And before we talk about the White Sox and their deal, do you want to talk about the other reliever? I don't think you put it on the list.
Who?
Chris Stavinsky. Chris Stavinsky re-signed.
I don't really want to talk about him.
Well, Chris Stavinsky re-signed for $1 million. It has a $2 million.
Yeah, that's
cool.
Pretty low.
I saw a tweet that said he has $100 buyout, which is hilarious. I know that's a typo, but like, he said he had $100 buyout, which is very funny. We talk about the White Sox and their big move. They signed KBO MVP Eric Fetty for a 2-year, $15 million deal. We literally both kind of just laughed at this because it was why the White Sox. Why? I don't know. He was gas with the Dinos and KBO, which is like NPB typically gets talked about like quadruple A. KBO is realistically triple A. It's a super offensive environment. Really, it's really just not a super high quality of baseball as a whole, but he was really good. And now he's going to go back to the States.
Yeah, really good is an understatement. He won the MVP and the Cy Young, going 20-6 with a flat 2 ERA across 180 innings with 209 strikeouts. And like I said previously, he had like a 70% ground ball rate. What I did read though is that he has changed as a pitcher. He went to the same guys that worked with Logan Webb to get him his changeup and his slider, pitches that he did not have when he previously pitched for the Nationals. So those were the two changes that he made before heading to KBO. So now he's equipped with a slider and a splitter and a fastball that doesn't really have to be that good if your secondaries are pretty good. I'm not expecting him to come over and like be like an ace all of a sudden, but I do think that after being just a really underwhelming pitcher during his time in Washington, and by underwhelming, I mean he had a 5.41 ERA across 454 innings from 2017 to 2022. I think he could come over and be like a I don't know, low 4s, high 3s guy that's like pretty solid, he's not going to be crazy. I don't think he's going to be like the like striking out everybody in the whole world, but there's definitely a possibility that this new pitch mix actually does work pretty well. But yeah, I would not be like, this is my dark horse and this is my dark horse Cy Young guy in the AL, but definitely could have success comparative to what he was before. It's not that hard. It's not that high of a bar. It's a 5.4 ERA. If you get your ERA under 5, that's a success.
If any of you that are watching have any interest in Korean baseball, a really, really good follow is Daniel Kim at Daniel Kim W on Twitter. He's really good. And he had a pretty interesting tweet that I completely and totally agree with. And it's he compared Eric Fetty to other imports. I guess, I don't know if you really call them imports because they're coming back, but Brooks Raley and Merrill Kelly. Two guys that have had success now coming back from KBO. We want to talk about Drew Rosinski too, but Drew Rosinski realistically just kind of struggled with injury. He didn't pitch. He got hurt. When these guys can actually get the time to just worry about their craft as a starter and not being sent to the bullpen or being a swingman or going up and down from the different levels of the minors, after one start and can't really get into a rhythm, typically those guys will get a lot better. And we've seen that obviously with Merrill Kelly and with Brooks Raley and hopefully now with Eric Fetty. Is Eric Fetty going to turn into a Cy Young guy? No. Could he potentially be a decent starter in Major League Baseball? For sure. I really think so. He's just 30 years old. I mean, that's not super old for a starter. You talked about the new pitch shapes helping him. I think a big thing that he talked about too, there's a Washington Post article with him that said he really kind of got his health in order too, because he'd been struggling with some shoulder and back issues and sort of got those fixed a little bit, and he's feeling better. So hopefully the White Sox can get the best out of him, because it's always cool to see these guys come back. It always feels like almost like the movie sort of redemption story, at least in my mind. That's sort of the headcanon that I give it. But I like this move. It's just weird that it was the White Sox. The other team that was supposed to be in on him was the Mets, and I felt like that was a pretty decent fit as well. But yeah, I mean, I think this is a pretty solid move here for the White Sox. Next one we can talk about is the Astros signing Victor Caratini for a deal worth $12 million over 2 years.
Yeah, it seemed like a lot for a guy who's going to be a backup catcher to Yainer Diaz. But he's not I think he's a pretty decent defender, and he's not a great hitter. I honestly, he's a pretty good hitter for he's a pretty good hitter for a catcher, to be honest, because he was like 94 WRC plus last year, which is below league average. But I think that's probably, if you were to just do WRC plus for catchers, it's probably above average. But yeah, I mean, backup catcher, not super crazy, but 2-year deal, good for him.
Yeah, switch hitting catcher, backup catcher. I mean, it's a solid deal. Caratini was a Cub for a long time, so I always like him. But it is kind of a lot of money for a backup catcher. Big trade to talk about with an extremely good prospect name involved. And this is a very rare trade between the Boston Red Sox and the New York Yankees. And it's the Red Sox trading Alex Verdugo to the Yankees in exchange for Richard Fitts, who is the number 12 prospect in the Yankee system, Greg, I think it's Weissert, and Nicholas Judas. Crazy name.
Really? Crazier than Dick Fitts?
Shut up. I was getting there. And you took it away. Fitts is now the number 10 prospect, top 10 for Fitts in the Boston system. This is a trade that we kind of had to deal with in the group chat with our resident Red Sox fan and Yankees fans.
It does seem like a weird fit to me, because Verdugo's, I think of Verdugo's a really controversial player, polarizing player. He obviously had the controversy when he was a prospect for the Dodgers. And then now he's been like a pretty outspoken guy for the Red Sox, who's just, Davis searching up the
Got it. I actually didn't know what happened.
But yeah, I feel like he's like a guy that Yankees fans probably loved to hate, and now he's going over there. And then everybody's talking about like, oh my God, he's not going to have the ginger beard. Like, I was never like, oh my God, ginger beards. When I think of ginger beards, I think of Alex Verdugo. I mean, he's just like, he's just like he's not that great is the big thing. So it's not like he's gonna be like a huge addition to the Red Sox. He will be a free agent after this year. This is his last year of arbitration eligibility. He's just like a slightly above league average hitter, if not just a league average hitter, who's a pretty decent fielder. He just doesn't strike out a lot, which I think is the big thing there. He's a good contact guy, 12 home run guy. I don't know. Maybe he hits more home runs playing with the short porch in right field in New York. But obviously, they're upgrading in the outfield this offseason with Juan Soto. But like this is also another upgrade because it's like the guys they had previously were like
Bums.
Billy McKinney. Yeah. So it's definitely an upgrade to bring in Verdugo. It is just a weird fit because I think it's going to be like him being such like an outspoken. He just like he doesn't strike me as a Yankee. Just sort of
Yeah.
like what their sort
Same
of
way
motto
Josh,
is. Just,
same way Josh Donaldson never struck me as a Yankee.
but see, like with Josh Donaldson is just like I see what you mean by that, but he's just like such like a I don't know. I feel like he's a dick, and so it like sort of works. And like Verdugo
Right.
maybe as well, but like he's just like I don't know. He's more I can't think of it. It's just the vibe that he has is not like oh yeah, we're clean shaven like quiet dudes that like go out there and do our business. Like he's gonna be talking so much shit.
Yeah, did you did you see the edit where they removed his beard?
I don't think that was an edit, was it?
I don't know.
The
He
Yes
looks
Network
like
one?
yes, he looks like the lead singer of Smash Mouth. Look, you should look that
Yep.
up right now.
Yeah, I saw it.
Yeah, that's something. I don't know. I think Verdugo's an extremely mid player. But realistically, I mean, he doesn't walk a ton. Yeah, here's a sick tweet, man. And this is actually a very funny at Yankee World on Twitter. Absolutely roasted himself. Last year, funnily enough, Yankees fans, Alex Verdugo last year was worse than Aaron Hicks.
That guy follows me on Twitter.
Dude, the GOAT. Yeah, he had a lower on-base percentage, lower OPS plus, lower WRC plus, less home runs. Yeah, I don't know. I think the move is a move. It feels like they just got him because he's a left-handed hitting corner outfielder, and that's sort of what they needed. But I don't know. I feel like there were better choices, especially considering that Yankees fans really hate Alex Verdugo for the most part.
Yeah.
They actually like it. I don't know. I feel like I probably would have went a different direction with this, but who really knows? Maybe he'll be really good. He just doesn't strike me as a Yankee. It feels like this is going to be not a disaster. It just feels like this is, if you're a Yankees fan, this is probably one you're going to be a little pissy about.
According to StatCast last year, he would have had less home runs playing all of his games in New York, but the previous 2 years he would have had like 10 more.
Well, that's not bad. I also don't really understand the Red Sox sort of side from this. And I know they're not really going to pay him.
They got Dick Fitz. I feel like that's all they needed.
I did get Dick Fitz. Do you want to talk about the prospect?
Sure. Fitz got a good fastball. He was a college reliever, and now he's a starter. He had a 3.48 ERA last year at Double A as a 23-year-old. Struck out 26% of batters. He seems pretty solid. He won't be in the majors for a couple of years. Weissert was pretty interesting as a reliever in the minor leagues, and then made his debut in 2022. Like he was the team's closer in 2022 in AAA. He had 18 saves and a 1.69 ERA and struck out like 37% of batters. And he did the same last year at AAA, but he's going to be 29 next year. And he hasn't really had a ton of success in the major leagues. He is a guy who throws like mid 90s with a pretty decent slider. That's about it. So he's not like a guy that's going to be like an ace of a bullpen. And then Judas is not coming up. He's not coming up. Well, that's fine. I think that tells you all you need to know.
Sick. Yeah, we can move on. We can talk about the Angels signing Luis Garcia to
Which
a 1-year
one?
deal. There's like 17 of them.
Yep.
Luis Garcia for $4.25 million dues. Yeah, they've added a bunch of dudes to their bullpen now in sort of the middle relief role. So Luis Garcia here, $4.25 million 1 year.
Yeah, sounds about right. He's not as good as he was in 2022 when he had a 3.39 ERA, struck out 26% of batters. Last year, his strikeout rate went below 20%, which is pretty bad. And he's going to be 37 next year, so he's more, I think, of a depth fit there. But as is the case always with the Angels, they can always use more pitching.
Yeah, they also supplemented this by adding Adam Simber as well. So they're just kind of adding guys in the middle of their bullpen. In addition to this move, we can talk about another bullpen move, probably a little bit bigger than Luis Garcia, and it's the Orioles signing Craig Kimbrell to deal your 1 year, $12 million. And I'm pretty sure we talked about this on the last pod because I said Hader was going to go there because I was like, oh, that'll be fun. I'm pretty sure you said they would go after someone more like Craig Kimbrell. And guess what? Craig Kimbrell here, 1 year, $12 million, $13 million club option with $1 million buyout, 2025.
Yeah, my co-host on my bullpen podcast in the pen, Rick Graham, he called this one weeks ago. He was just like, oh, Craig Kimbrell fits so perfectly here. Just that 1 year holdover guy until Felix Bautista is back next year, 2025, recovering from Tommy John surgery. And yeah, this works out really well. He was actually surprisingly really good last year. 34% strikeout rate, 3.26 ERA. He started to fall off at the end of the year, but I think that was a result of him throwing more innings than he had since 2017. So I think his workload was a lot higher. He also pitched in 71 games, which is his most since 2011. So he was being used a lot. And so I think he got gassed towards the end of the year and he lost his control. He's a guy that really relies on having his mechanics perfect to pitch well. And I was one of the best relievers of all time. I don't doubt that he's going to, have another good year next year.
Yeah, all-time leader in strikeouts in the 9th inning.
Yep.
Yeah, really good for him. And then the last thing that we can talk about is the Juan Soto deal potentially nearing completion for a move to the Yankees, which feels like the worst timeline possible.
Yeah, Juan Soto to the Yankees, Shohei Ohtani to the Dodgers. Yeah,
awful.
Yeah. We're not quite there yet, so we won't talk about the specifics and stuff. A lot of players have been named. We likely already know the deal, and it's sort of disappointing when deals come through like this. I like when they're exciting, when they come out of nowhere, like the Kelnick deal or the Verdugo deal, and usually you see that mostly with trades, because with signings, it's always just like, oh, this guy's interested in these teams, and you know they're available as free agents. But with trades, it's like you never really know who's going to get traded and for what and to whom. And so those are a lot more exciting. But this is one where it's just like we've known for weeks that Juan Soto was going to get traded or was on the market. And then we've known for days that the Yankees were interested, and now it's been multiple days that they've been on the verge of trading for him. So like at this point, it's just like, all right, get it over with. It's not even like exciting at this point, but that is pretty crazy. They are really upgrading their team. I love to see the Yankees be aggressive, not because I want to see them succeed, but because I like when teams when there is like a team, when teams are trying. I think it's great, having a team like that going all out and sort of upping the level of competition for everybody, up in the bar of how good you have to make your teams. And so that would be a really huge overhaul to the outfield with Judge, Soto, and Verdugo out there. They would look pretty dang good. And Judge and Soto in the same lineup is pretty wild.
Yeah. The deal's kind of been rumored for the last few hours, and then we had like a confirmation, like, oh yeah, it's 100% happening, and then it kind of got walked back a little bit. Some names were talked about, and then they were like, okay, we're revisiting it. Andy Martino is saying that there's Andy Martino tweeted that there's cautious optimism that issues can be worked out, and that the deal is going to proceed. A lot of work has gone into it from both sides, but it was supposed to be done many hours ago. but it does not sound dead. So there's still a chance that this might not happen, but it's looking like increasingly likely that it's just going to. Some names were talked about, but there's nothing really to just be like, oh yeah, this 100% are all of the players involved. I know at one point they're talking about Trent Grisham being involved too, which would be crazy that potentially they could save either Soto and not actually have to play that guy in the outfield because he really stinks in the outfield.
Where does Stanton play? He doesn't. He's on the IL.
He doesn't. That guy can sit on the bench or go do something else because that guy is not good at baseball anymore. I don't know. I think obviously it sucks that he's going to the Yankees. If that's the case, that will happen. But like you said, it is good when teams do try to get better and are aggressive. And the Yankees are a team that really are sort of expected to do that every single year. They're expected to be competitive every year. And this sort of moves the needle. The ideal situation if this trade happens, I think, for all of us non-Yankees fans, like, okay, they get him. He's good for a year. They give up a ton in the trade and then he just doesn't resign. So like, that'd be kind of cool. Just fast forward to 2025 offseason. Or 2024 offseason, we'll be right here talking about it again. But that's all the moves so far of the winter meetings, which obviously have just recently started, and more stuff is due to happen. But you have anything else you want to talk about?
No, sir.
Then we can go ahead and end it off here. No closers, not today. Go away. You should go follow both of us on twitter.com. You can follow me at DVSBird. That's my twitter.com account. And you can follow Jake Crumpler at Jake Crumpler. Follow the Athlete Sub, which sponsors our podcast, at Athlete Sub on there. And go to the athletesub.org to read all of the articles. Supposed to be rolling out some more content, revamping everything, so on and so forth. And then you should go read all of the cajillion things Jake writes for all of the sites he is also employed by, such as...
Yeah. Pitcherlist.com. Go check it out. It's got a new hosting service, so it runs super fast, and we just finished our hiring process, so we hired like 25 new writers and stuff. This offseason is going to be super popping. I think like the end of this year and into next year is when things start ramping up again after, everybody needs their break following the regular season and the postseason. But yeah, there's always tons of amazing content there. And then you can also check out my stuff at Baseball HQ, where I do playing time analysis. It's pay to read. There is a paywall, but they've got great content as well.
But that is all for us. Make sure you check back in with us next week for episode number 84 of the Free Baseball Podcast, where we can hopefully talk about Shohei Ohtani signing with one of our teams and not the Dodgers or someone else.
Yeah.
And all of the offseason moves, just make sure you're checking back in with us every Wednesday or whatever. But you got to follow our socials so you know when we're going live. That's all for us for now.